something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Taylor, do you want to do an intro first and then I'll run
You
and.
want me to clap, so
Well, I think there may be tears throughout this, but they're good tears. We're gonna make some progress.
I'm Taylor Smith. I am the disaster recovery specialist for the town of Superior, as well as a partner of Dr. Caceres. My background is service dog training, so I did that for about 10 years. So pets are like my number one passion. So I was really excited to really put on this preparedness program and have you guys all be here. So thank you so much for coming. And thank you for spreading the word to other people in the community as well. I'm also working on a dog preparedness webinar as well to come in September, and we'll have dog training video for that as well. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Awesome. Okay, let me give a little bit more of a full introduction of myself, and then we'll dive into some content for today. As I mentioned, my name is Dr. Casara Andre. I am a practicing veterinarian here in Colorado. I am also the director of an organization called the Front Range Veterinary Medical Reserve Corps. So MRCs are a group of medical professionals that are available for other disaster groups to say, hey, we need a doctor. Hey, we need a EMT. And so ours are the licensed veterinary professionals, veterinarians, veterinary technicians, but also lots of animal lovers. Because for every one veterinarian, you need about 50 handlers, right? We're not the most organized, or than the Jody's laughing because she knows about it. Yes, exactly. So that group, the VMRC, is we are one of two in Colorado. So our unit serves everything east of the Continental Divide. So it's a pretty big geographic area. But again, remember that we are a resource for the other disaster management groups to reach out to. So as a county, as an emergency planner might say, what is our plan? How do we implement this new policy? We would be able to say, we should be thinking about parvo tests before we let a bunch of puppies congregate. Maybe we should think about bite risk when we have lots of stressed animals and stressed humans kind of walking past each other really quickly, with just things like that that sort of need that background perspective of what we can both prevent by preparing, and then also what we can do to make the time of stress, the potential injury less, so harm reduction. But then in my work, in our team's work, what do we do to recuperate? It is impossible for us to keep our animals as safe as we would like to. And instead, it is better for us to work for resiliency, to teach them how to be safe on their own, to use that independence that these beautiful little kitty souls already have and cherish so much and are so important to them, and help them learn how to navigate the world independently, but also safely. So my work outside of the VMRC, in my own personal practice, I focus on animals that have emotional trauma, that have some form of a behavioral condition or a medical condition that is rooted in some form of a emotional trauma, usually like a disaster, an evacuation. It can be intentional trauma by a human. It can have just been something that we don't know what happened. But while I won't dwell on it more than just the sentence, I think everyone in the room knows that there are a lot of terrible things that happen to animals. And that many times it is a human who has made that happen, either by not caring for the world that they also live in, or truly trauma inflicted on them. So my work in a professional setting is to problem solve, how do we make that better? And it also involves how do we help the human understand that sometimes it's them that need to change. So sometimes that involves a lot of human counseling, but mostly it's work with family units and talking about the dynamics between and across species. So I'm going to bring a lot of that work into my conversation today, because again, I think it's important to recognize that there are long-term consequences if we don't think about what happens in a stressful event beforehand, but then also to approach it without being overwhelmed. And I think that that's the role that a veterinarian can play in some of these conversations, to say, I have seen that animal on the other side of that injury. I have seen the animal that says, no, don't touch me anymore, I refuse. And that it is possible to work with that animal and their family to get to a place of, okay, I get it. I understand. Yes, I'd love to participate. And you can change that tone and you can retrain that demeanor. So every time through this conversation, it just feels like, oh, that's a lot. I don't know if we can, I'm overwhelmed. Just remember that part of taking care of our animals is doing this conversation in community with communities, so that it's not just you having to make sure your animal's safe, it's your neighbor that comes to get your cat out. It's communities who know how to find you a shelter where your cat can go. It's organizations like the Red Cross, like our VMRC that says, yes, we love your animal as much as you do, and we will absolutely be there for you both, even in time of disaster. Any comments or questions on that opening or background or anything you want to ask me about? Okay, excellent. I will also just mention that my background before some of this civilian work, I was a veterinarian for the military. So I worked as a veterinarian, as a officer for the U.S. Army, the Veterinary Corps. And so cats are not my species there, but military working dogs were. And working with police dogs, military working dogs, it's such a beautiful bond to watch between that hands-on and the animal, and how much interaction and communication that goes on there. And it's such a privilege to help that bond form and to help that bond be healthy. But a lot of some of the background that you hear does come from working with those high-level trainable animals who are really interested in partnership. But then I also have, I was a veterinarian for the Iditarod. Someone know what that is? So the sled dog race in Alaska in 2015. And that's very different from a military working dog. Those are dogs. And what was fascinating for me to learn is that all my experience working with a partner dog, a police dog, military working dog, they're like, what are we doing? We're doing it. What are we doing? We're doing it together, right? But when it's a pack dog, those dogs are very well handled. They're used to being put into planes and taken everywhere. You can put them on their back. They're amazing animals to work with, but they always know where the lead dog and the musher is and you. So it's this really interesting paradigm to step into, because you can tell that animal is engaging with you, but also very much like, what are we doing? You know, what is this group of us doing? So it's just an interesting dynamic to play in. And as we talk about cats, very, very different than those scenarios because they're different species. But the reason I bring those examples up is to bring home the point, if we can understand what they're trying to do, it's much easier for us to offer a suggestion of, can we do this to make you safer? Does that make sense? Instead of just having an idea that we think should happen and gotta make them understand, it would be much easier if we could just switch our paradigm a bit and say, what are you trying to do? Little cat whose food is the most important thing in the world. Or what are you trying to do? You're chasing my heels. Let's shape this game into something else. Let's use the things that are already your motivators to make this positive for both of us. Okay, and very last point before I move on. I've mentioned throughout all this little intro that family unit dynamics are very important in this conversation. The animal doesn't get to the shelter themselves. And while you are here to advocate for your own animals at home, there are a lot of your community members that maybe haven't thought about this, or maybe are overwhelmed thinking about this, or for some reason can't. There's something in their life that's kind of blocking this conversation from happening. So as you work with your own animals, my request is that you simply be really proud of it. Who can you tell? Who can you take a video of, look what I'm training my cat to do? Do you know why? This is quite important. That is your piece of contributing back to community. And as much as you make your own animal safe, it is so easy to just let that pour out into everyone around you. There is so much money, there is so much financial investment in preparing humans to be safe in disaster. How many times does that actually work? Like, who is prepared? Who has their own go bag? From the VMRC's perspective, we are changing a lot of our paradigm and a lot of our direction and really bringing this to the planning tables that we're participating in. We're trying to bring the new idea of saying, if I told you, Janelle, in order for your animal to avoid emotional trauma, you need to be prepared. Versus, Janelle, you should be safe in a disaster and pack your go bag. Which one's gonna make you more active? Which one do you think you're gonna take action?
Obviously taking care of their cat,
Yeah,
kid, your dog.
absolutely. Just being able to have a point of activation that's not, I'll be fine, I'll figure it out, I'm independent, I got this. If we can just change that perspective to say, in order for you, the animal that you have taken the responsibility to care for them to be safe in this really tough time, I need you to show up here in Superior on Saturday and participate in this class. So again, just a thank you to you all for being here and showing up. But it is an interesting paradigm shift. think if we can change a little bit away from anthrocentric, we're actually making a lot of progress. Okay, any comments on that one? All right, so let's talk about the entire family. So how does your family prepare for emergencies? Who has kids in the family household? Now, I know you do. Do you talk about disaster preparedness with them? Does their school, what do you think, what goes on in their world about disaster?
Yeah, I mean, in their school, I think they do have
Nice,
drills and
good.
and that kind of stuff, if something happens like in their school.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
We just don't.
we don't talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, I have thought about it, right, like, we live in a really old house, and like, how would we get from the second floor?
Yeah.
But I don't.
Well, I mean, that's right. Oh, we need to
Yeah.
do that together.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be easier to get your kids on board if we said, we're gonna do a drill for the cat?
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone get your go bags because we're training for the cat. So just think about that because it is easier to get the humans to have fun when the animals are involved. Anyone else with kids or parents, anyone that you are just should be thinking about as disaster prep? So is your family prepared? Any other call outs? Online?
Which is wet.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one because if she's
Yeah.
usually away and then coming back, her stuff isn't where it normally is. So it might actually be a nice exercise to say, now that you're transitioning for the summer, how are we getting out and away? Yeah. Any from online, Taylor? Okay. I'll come at neighborhood felines in a moment. I'll just mention on this emergency planning, we are about to start running a donation drive for a photo competition. So submit a photo that demonstrates your family unit's preparedness. So if anyone wants to participate in that, I think that's gonna be really fun. I'm also mentioning this neighborhood felines because for cats particularly, there are often so many animals in our neighborhoods and close associations that don't have an identified caregiver. Companion cats, so all the ones that y'all have mentioned, ones that are in our homes and we're really considering part of our family. Working cats, don't know what I mean when I say that, the barn cats, that they truly have a job. Yep, that's their role, absolutely. And then community versus feral cats. Does anyone sort of know the difference between those? It's sort of a loose definition. What's a feral versus a community cat?
With a community can be one that, oh, we throw a little food out.
They're the fat ones, they're like, I'm coming for my meal in every single household. Right? And then the feral cat is, which one?
Yeah, it's on its own, man.
Yeah, and like, no thanks, I'd rather not interact, like, I'm good. There are, I live in Lafayette and we're on a pretty rural area and you can tell the cat that's a community cat because again, they're like chubby ones. And then the feral cats that are pretty scrappy. You can tell which ones are the feral ones. And that doesn't mean that they're unhealthy. You just see that their body is pretty ready for their lifestyle. So while we're not going to talk about those particular cats today, I just want to mention them for awareness of we are also trying to plan for them. Who gets them out in a disaster? How do we find them later? How do we care for those animals as well? This is my kitty. This is Silas. He's 12 years old, domestic short hair, and he gets to be the subject of all of my training plans. And sometimes he likes it and sometimes he doesn't. I made him go on a car ride this morning. He has to have a dental in May. And it's not his favorite, cars are not his favorite, but he's doing fantastic. And just that repetition, and then the fact that, oh, I ended up back in my house and I got breakfast. And oh, that was weird, but mom's pretty weird anyway. So, okay, we're just gonna do it, I guess. So whenever we think about planning for felines, I always like to start here. What are we actually planning for? Because they're not really bound up in our world and needing to figure out where to go for the shelter. We're really thinking about their health in the midst of that. So first, physical injury in a disaster, smoke inhalation, actual injury, whose cat was kind of bouncing around the car, someone had a lot of scratch, like absolutely, they can actually have a physical injury from that. Even just an older cat being in a car, there's so much little micro movements and that can be really exhausting to do. Acute stress injury for kitties particularly, we think about kidneys and bladder health. So renal disease is really, really common in felines. Probably most of y'all will know that, especially in your older kitties. And so also trained humans, but we definitely see stress go to the renal system in kitties. The cystitis, the stress cystitis, the why do you have bladder infection? I don't know. Let's give you more entertainment. That's a very, very common thing to see in the veterinary world. Does that make sense to everyone? Can I hear, just let me know if I need to put more explanation there. So bladder, kidney health is something we really need to think about for felines. So acute stress injury, this could turn into renal injury down the road. Stones in the bladder. In a male cat, a blocked cat, have you know what that is? Their little, their little penis gets blocked by a stone or gets constricted, and so they can't pee, but then they can't get relaxed because they can't pee, and so that's just a really tough thing to deal with medically. And then it becomes a pattern in their bodies, and so once they have that incident over and over and over. So again, while maybe the cat isn't burned in the fire, we are really thinking about what happens to that body because of that acute stress injury. And then the emotional experience of what happened. And importantly for the animal, this is dog, cat, horse, it doesn't matter. They do not know that all this hubbub of being put in the car and carrier and different home, they don't know it's because this fire is going to maybe kill them, right? We know that, but they just know that when mom was moving around and stressed and when everyone was like this, bad things happen. Or when the carrier came out, bad things happen, right? So the emotional experience of the circumstance is as impactful on the animal's rest of their lives. I think I said right. That experience is very impactful in the animal's life, even if they don't get physically injured. And from a medical perspective, I have seen many animals that their decision to accept medical care after that experience was no. Don't touch me, I won't allow that, I don't care, I do not consent. And unfortunately, that can end up in us not being able to provide something they need because they're so determined, no, this isn't gonna happen. Does that make sense? So we really are thinking about those long-term health consequences. In addition, changes in your environment. Who gets stressed when someone moves your pins or your scissors or your, just I put it there and it was supposed to be there when I came back, stop moving my stuff around. How many of your cats get stressed when you move the couch? Anybody? Is that just mine? In a small room versus a big room, liking carriers versus not. So the environment is incredibly important to all animals, but particularly felines because they are so sensitive to their environment, how much they can feel their whiskers, all their fur. Changes in their own health status, do they need to be confined? They don't understand why they have to wear this cone. They don't understand why they have sutures in their arm. So how does that health status actually affect their emotional well-being? And then changes in the family unit and stress. Our lives affect our cats, particularly our cats. Cats are just little emotional radars of what's going on. Now, I'm not saying it's a direct correlation. If your cat suddenly starts peeing in your pews, check your own stress levels and maybe think about what's going on in your life. Now, that's not always true, but do y'all see what I mean by that? It is absolutely a reflection of what's going on around them. And if, as a family, you've just lost your home, have to be in a hotel for a bit, have to go stay with a friend who has another cat, another dog, and children, this can be really, 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 and on tough on a cat. Any comments or questions so far on that? Okay, so we're gonna start talking about what we actually want to do for your individual feline. So pull up your own cat in your brain and we're gonna start thinking about what does your own animal need? So what are your evacuation? What are your sheltering options? Are you gonna go stay with a friend? What would happen? Where would you go if you need to evacuate? What does that look like for you? Can anyone throw out a suggestion? Does anyone know what would, you had to evacuate today? What would be your first call?
We had to stay in the hotel because, well, our friends were evacuating. Our other
Yeah, your
friends-
neighborhood. Yeah.
So we just drove as far as we could and found a hotel there.
Yeah, so that's a hard one, right? Hotels that take animals and hotels that take cats versus a dog, right? That's also becoming a difference. And so if you are going to a hotel that's a little bit more for dogs and everyone else is going to a hotel, thinking about your animal's vaccination status. So for a cat, that's a little bit more, are they going to have to interact with another cat? But that's also something to think about. Anyone else have an evacuation?
So we try to go to a hotel,
we didn't have a cat at the time, so, but it was. The circumstances, we had no family, then, loved one.
And what about that, if you had had a cat, like what would that look like now, if you had to do that same
Yeah, I
thing?
think it would have been okay, so I don't think. Yeah, but it's would have been different. But we did end up, I don't know, we did end up in Homewood Suites, who does take animals. But I only ever remember seeing dogs there, but you normally wouldn't see cats anyway, so I don't know what they're called. But they're just a couple miles down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, knowing which hotels do, knowing where you can go, thinking about, I think about your animal particularly, because it sounds like we have some confinement phobia, like that small room, but then as soon as she was able to be out. But if you try that in a new house, so, okay, you can go do your own thing in someone else's house, that's a cat that you probably can't find for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Right, that, because you do need to have that space controlled. And so the animal that knows how to be calm and settled in a new space is really good. So already pinging in your mind, pheromone use, can you put that in your go bag so that you can create that safe space in your new house? Just what can you take with you that seems like your own place?
So what
that
is-
makes that?
What
Things like, peel away, thunder shirt makes a pheromone, so kitties, when they come and rub their cheek on you, like, I love you so much, it just like possessing you. They're,
pretty laundry in?
I mean, if that's what you kind of use, we should go for that. So there are some companies that make, synthetic pheromones that when, there'll be plugins or there's collars or a spray. And the goal of that is really to not let the cat need the spray to create what they need. So it's trying to take that effort away from them so that they don't have to do the extra effort as well as in a hotel or a neighbor's house or a friend's house, that they are trying to create their safe space by marking it. So that's just an option. But does that make sense? So some space, thinking about where you're actually gonna go.
We have
Yes.
somebody online, Chris, he said one challenge we have had in the past is the nuts and bolts of evacuating. We live in an apartment and when the fire alarm goes off, Loki runs and hides and it's really hard to get him out of hiding spots.
Yes.
Once we get out, he is okay with being in the car, but it takes way too long to evacuate.
Yeah.
Like if there was an actual fire, I worry, could we catch him quick enough to get out of the building?
Yes. Such a valid and scary concern, 100%. We will talk more about kenneling in a moment. The first thing that I would just suggest in that is put a kennel where he's trying to go and start rewarding for going into kennel so that when that fire alarm goes off, he's actually running to the kennel. So that he's like, yep, thank you, here's some pheromone spray, shut that door and we're gone. Just thinking again about what is the animal trying to do? He's trying to get in a small space where he feels safe. Can we just make that a little bit better? That also allows us to and leave, right? Without trying to get the cat out and around, could we just avoid that by making that a more seamless step? So just things like that. Great question. And the reason I just put this, I'll talk about it as we go through, but my point is that it is easy to evaluate your cat's health. You do not have to take them or drag them to the clinic for you to know how they're doing in turn. There's some very easy needle-free urine collection options that we're working from a disaster perspective. So it is not, does not have to be traumatic for you to know your cat's health status. Yes, question? Nope. Medical health status, vaccinations appropriate for where you're going, what you're headed. What is your cat's lifestyle? Does they go outside? What do we actually do vaccinating for? And then baseline diagnostics. So if you bring me your kitty after you've evacuated and you say, they're peeing outside the litter box and feeling really lethargic and I'm not sure what's going on, and we do blood work and their kidneys look pretty bad. If that's the only point in time that I have to evaluate your animal's health, I can't actually tell you a lot from that. Because that could simply be the stress of the event, or it could be this very long-term chronic issue that now we're just having a flare-up for and we should really quickly treat. Or it could be a new injury that we need to handle it now. So it's very difficult in any medicine to do anything from one set of data. Medicine is about trends. And so if I don't have anything else to base my information off of, even if you bring me your cat after a stressful event and we get all the diagnostics we want, it's still harder for me to help you know what to do next than if I have one parameter from a month ago, one set of data from the week before the stressful event happened. Does that make sense? This is just me plugging for my profession of anything that you can do ahead of time really helps us help you in that event. Emotional health status, creating resilience, we've talked about all those, and we'll talk through communication cues. I just want to emphasize that emotional health is as relevant to your animal's well-being as their physical health. And there's no one who knows that better than a veterinarian because of the animals that we can't give care for, because their emotional body says, no, I refuse. Okay, we'll dive more into evacuation planning now. So what is your notification plan? How are you going to get alerts that you need to take these steps in enough advance? So Boulder County alert, I will need to get you the slide, just the link show up for everyone, but we'll send the links out later. And then this Pet Health and Rescue app is one that was born out of Marshall Fire. Dave Crawford is the executive director of Animal Help Now, which already has a wildlife rescue app. He did lose his home in Marshall Fire and now works really closely with our team. And we've consulted on this app quite a bit. And we're actually using this in our disaster exercise coming up in May.
I tried to find out or get a friend of mine to be, whatever, one of my rescue partners. She doesn't have
and Android's coming out in soon, very, very soon. But keep pushing for that because that's a big piece of it.
Yeah.
And how was your experience on the iPhone?
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
essentially,
far, I mean, I haven't, had to use it, so.
but you have all your information stored on it, you have all.
It's just, they ask, like, where did you pet hide and all.
Yes.
Very good, information.
Yeah, and so that, I mean, you can feel where that's kind of come from. We've consulted with this team a lot on what does it need to contain? What are your communication cues? Where is your cat hiding? Where is their go back? Where is their medical record? We're working with their team now to include things like their microchip number and their rabies tag number, so that say you get your cat out, you're much less likely to grab medical records than an owner. But when you bring the cat to me or the shelter, at least I can see a little bit of info and then I can make a little note in there and then you get it back. So there's just a lot of brainstorming, again, why we do this in community, because we're not going to solve it on our own. But things like this app, there are a lot of people working on these ideas. Okay, so for everyone that's in person, you have a handout, and for everyone online, I gave you some pictures. This is a really well done brochure, and just on the inside, there's a suggested packing list. There's things to help you think about, do I have it? Do I need it? What does my cat need? What do I need to help my cat? And then on the back end, more information based. So just a good checklist to think through, not an end all be all, but I really like this resource. I will say on that one, just your feline's unique need. Do they have special medical needs? Do they have special handling needs? Do they have allergies? What needs to go in their little go bag, in their grab bag? I think that we have built the base of this enough. Does anyone want to ask me why feline mental health is important? Just as a bottom line. Okay, good job. I've convinced everyone that it's important. So the way we do that is by working on consent-based care. And importantly, this word, cooperative care, is one that all of you should have, whether you have a dog or a horse or a cat. It is very possible to have an animal cooperate in their own medical care. And that can be as simple as standing on a mat to lick a treat while they get an exam. And if they don't want to be touched, they can step off the mat and no more touching happens, but you also don't get the treat. But if you step back on the mat, you get the treat, but I'm also gonna do my exam. And so it's really easy to set up some barters, essentially, to be really clear about, here's what you get in exchange for this, rather than we're just gonna tie you up and tussle you and just get it done. Now, sometimes we do have to just get through things quickly, but cooperative care means that we're helping that animal engage in the process, and important for a feline, because how many of you said independence? There were at least 3 of you that were like, independence is what my cat is about. Often, if we can sink into their cooperative care, this is really, really easy to do. For kitties, less is often more. You'll hear that in every veterinary clinic. instead of touching more or holding tighter, usually giving a kitty their own space and using that independence to let them make their own decision, like going into a kennel when they feel like hiding. Great, go to your safe space. I love that you're in your safe space because that means I can also get you out. So using their independence to create a safer space for them. And then prior training, the more times that they've seen that, yes.
So we have a question online from Chris. How do you get a cat to cooperate when the cat is not food motivated at all? He is attention motivated.
That's even better. I love that. Most kitties can be convinced to be food motivated if you can pair the attention with the food. And that's vice versa too. An animal that is very food motivated and not attention focused, you can blur those two together and just make sure the animal understands that they are synced. That attention and food come at the same time. And particularly for an attention-based animal, this is going to be really fun for those training actions to do. I think that's a really fun thing to participate with. Any specific questions on like an action or just in general? That the animal's just not food motivated. As well as there are some pretty sneaky veterinary specific treats that I guarantee I could get most cats to like.
What are good actions?
Say that again?
What are good actions?
I'm not trying to understand.
What can you do better?
I'll come back around to that. And I think probably this next section might answer some of those. So prior training means that that animal has at least some context in their environment. They've seen it once before, they felt that experience once before, and it didn't end poorly, is more likely to create that resiliency. So communication cues are things like this, just using a cue, a touch, a word, a sound, a signal that helps your animal understand what's going to come next. So handling and body touch sensitivity is a big thing for all kitties. And this can be very physiologically wired. Cats are very likely to have something that is, the medical term for it is hyperesthesia. So hyperesthesia. So more is the hyper and esthia is feeling, like anesthesia. So you're under anesthesia during surgery, you don't feel anything. So hyperesthesia means that they feel everything more than they should. So that touch and that's real for them. You know, it's not necessarily just a behavior. It can be a very physiologic cause, especially if they have a prior injury. Endocannabinoid system health is very important in kitties. And if that has been stressed a lot, they can just have a lot of sensitivity to light and sound and body touch, as well as negative behavioral experiences, emotional experiences can result in behavior linked to that. That is so hard. And so working on body touch sensitivity intentionally in your kitty is really important. And this might be as simple as food bowl, pet head, food bowl goes down. Just incorporating touch into the things that the animal already wants to do, and then making it very distinct. Okay, well, touch first, then food. And then maybe having them seek touch because the food's about to come. So there's a really clear way that we can make this easy for the animal. We just have to think about it a little bit. So let me show you a few of these other ones.
You said that.
Oh, beautiful. And I have some videos to show you of my little kiddo. Crating, we've talked about that already. Does your animal like to be in a confined space? Sometimes that's good. Do they not? Sometimes that's bad. Making sure that they understand that they are still themselves in the middle of that weird enclosure is really important. So my kitty and I, we practice get in a lot. I'll show you his get in a moment. I just make him get in lots of things. Like, get in the trash can, get in the box, get in there. And he now enjoys it. First, he thought it was very odd. But the point is that you're teaching them that they have their own space, even if stuff changes around them. So creating, loading, unloading, as well as being calm in that kennel space is important. Most people think that cats can't have a recall. Do you know what that means? Like, here, whistle for your cat, right? But they absolutely can. Mine comes to a whistle. We have a couple of whistles because of how our house is laid out and how he spends time in my clinic. One whistle that means it's just me, like come here, I need you. One whistle that means come here and there's a human that I want you to interact with. And one is come here and there's an animal I want you to interact with. And he definitely chooses which one he feels like. He has to come when I whistle the me one. That's a requirement. Medical restraint, this is still just holding cooperative care. We won't go into too much of that today, but I'm happy to answer questions because it makes such a difference in my ability to assess an animal's health if they can actually communicate with. If they're just shut down and celebrating, I might be able to feel them and listen to their heart. But an animal that is much more open and interactive and lets me feel their body and then we can kind of move together, I can learn so much more about what's going on inside of them. So all the work that you do at home, whether you never evacuate or not, hopefully never, it still has really important positive benefits to the rest of your animals. Okay. It's always my mouse that's hard. It's fine. Okay, this is his get in man. I'm not saying it comes super fast.
Yeah. Yes. Like, definitely trying to.
Okay, well, let's just talk for a second about why do you think it's not happening? Because Silas didn't know how to do this. He's not a cat that just wants to do, he's 12. Okay, if he was 1, this might be a like, oh, I just want to get in there. He is 12. He has his own patterns. He doesn't want to get in things. This was absolutely a taught behavior. So who said, oh, that would never happen to my cat? All right, I see a strong no here. I see a strong no. Tell me why.
Well, I think part of it is he was stray for 4 years, and so he's just not. I've never done it, but I'll try to try. How do you? You know, for me, I came, because I really wanna know exactly how you do that.
Absolutely.
I see you doing it, but
Absolutely.
that doesn't tell me, how do I get a very independent cat? Other than putting food down in the food bowl.
Yes.
You know, what's the technique?
Well, let's think about some of the things we've already learned today. From an idea about how do I make my cat who's gonna hide under the bed able to evacuate? So he's already doing that. So you've already told me something that your cat is already doing with a lot of love. And what is that? Eat.
It's more a matter of what he doesn't do. I mean,
No.
he will not get under a bed.
Okay.
He is petrified of ceiling fans. You can't put him under a blanket, so going into that kennel, it's something over, I mean, literally. If I stand there with my hand over his head, he
I
gets
hear you.
stressed.
I hear
So
you.
how do you reverse
Absolutely.
that? There isn't a whole lot. He's very independent. I mean, other than food, not much motivated.
I promise that with a food motivated cat and independence, we could absolutely get him into a carrier. So I'm gonna tell you the first step. Okay, I want you to go get one of the carriers that open, you know, that have like a clamshell. I don't remember that, like you could unhook them. Does that make sense? So like that, right? So that he's
Yeah.
nice and comfortable in it. And take the top off
Okay,
and feed him in the open bottom for about a week.
okay.
Okay, and then the next thing I want you to do is just put the top open on the other side of it. So you have 2 open halves,
Okay,
and one of them has the food in. And maybe the other one has a scattered kibble that's not his normal food or some treats, but he needs to go explore that a little bit on his own.
okay.
Okay, and so then the next step is maybe this top half just leans over the edge of the bottom and it's still open, but maybe there are crumbs underneath this one
Okay.
and his normal food here. So the first step, like you and I are thinking, get in it, get in the thing. But for an animal, what is the thing I'm getting in? Like, and why? That's weird. Like,
Yeah.
why do I want to do this? But you just told me that he's independent and loves food. So if I let him have an environment where you can independently get food on your own, I think he'd probably actually be like, oh, okay, all right, I'm just gonna go over and get my food on my own. And you can use that to really create some landscapes that allow him to explore things over his head without you being in the picture. And probably, unfortunately, it is the addition of you and intention and like, I need you to do this thing that he's more cueing off of because that has been bad in the past. Not because it's you, but because a human sort of like do the thing, do the thing, do the thing. He's like, I don't know what the thing is, and I just opt out. I don't want to. So if you can take yourself out of the scenario for just a couple of weeks and let him explore the thing that you want him to interact with, just see if that's not a little bit better, and then we can talk about the next step. Look at that. I got it from a never. See?
The one thing.
Now, when you get an email from me and I say, well, it didn't work.
Well, in a month from now, we do the next step.
have to keep in mind, it takes patience on
Absolutely.
your part. And secondly, is teaching the animal to make that choice. Because when they realize it's their choice, the more they want to do it. It's not forcing them to do it, and that creates trust between you and the cat.
Yes.
And it works for dogs. This is the basis of my training, so, I mean, it works like magic, I'm telling you.
Yeah, and
Every time.
it's just the perspective, it's a us paradigm where we as humans, yay for us, we can see the end point. But if we don't understand the steps in between, it is very hard for an animal to understand where we're trying to go. So for Silas, he doesn't, now he gets it. Now he's like, oh, get in means, I don't know, put myself in something weird and like, he doesn't, we're beginning to extrapolate different things, like just get in the thing and he'd probably go under it. Like now he's guessing, but he has the idea that, oh, I'm supposed to sort of be in a small space. But that's very far from what my idea of get in is. So as you're working with any type of animal training, any type of behavior modification, don't be human, just be less human and it will work. Just think about it from the animal's perspective.
Was that a tree?
Yes, this is a churu. Can you pull up a churu like on the web later? I just want
Yeah.
to share it later. It's just gonna be, oh, maybe I can do it. I will see. So it's just, there are a lot of really nifty rewards now that can be really, really useful for this. This is just a tube that you can tear off, like a single serving, like baby food in a tube. But the texture is really important for most kitties, and so these are really useful. They're shelf stable, they last forever. So you can have a million of them, really easy to pack. Will essentially be in all of our go bag kits for all of our Red Cross. Like it's just a really, really effective way to engage, even for the non-food motivated cats, most for their training.
It's interesting that you say you have to teach, because everybody's like, oh, all cats like box. Our cat has absolutely no interest that she will like play with the outside of the box, that's it, she has no interest to go inside of the box.
I also hear in your cat's history some confinement trauma. So, right, and probably from before she was with you, and I would suspect that that's also the case here. So cats, felines, do like small spaces because they like to hunt in small spaces, and their whiskers and their bodies are geared to see in things. Let me tell y'all something really cool. This might not show up online. If I have a non-traumatized cat, so we're talking like has been raised with mom, kittens, and so we're not dealing with some behavioral issues. If I put a square on the floor, like I take the masking tape and the cat will go sit in it. I want you all to try this at home. Write it down. Write it down. I want to see a picture. You must send Taylor a picture of this. Even if you just do the corners, the cat will go sit in it. And the cat
So
will
is
just,
that why like you have like a piece of paper or a magazine or something and they will sit right? on
and
top?
exactly in the middle of it. Yeah. And we don't actually know why. We think that it's how just their eyes are formed and their sensory perception, and I think that the square is something that their mind just really key on, maybe looking down dark holes from light, I don't know, we don't know. But it is a thing, so I want you all to try it and give us all feedback. But it's something important to know if your cat doesn't. So if your cat doesn't like small spaces, doesn't like being up high, then there is probably something traumatic in their background. And we should address that up front. We should acknowledge it as a thing in their medical history and try to figure out how we can help them either find that behavioral pattern again or something else to replace it, because those are really important things for that feline body physiology to be able to settle, to have a space where they feel safe, and teaching them to have that kennel, that den, that safe space is a really important part of their behavioral health. How many cats like to be high? Anyone not like to be high? Doesn't like to be high? Tell me about that.
Doesn't jump on anything,
How old again?
almost 15.
Did she used to?
No, I've only had her.
Oh, that's right, that's right. Anyone else? That's the only one. There is a medical issue underlying that, right? So we should deal with pain control. We should absolutely think about cannabis, Silencia is an amazing drug that's out. So nutrition, just musculoskeletal support, cats are so great at responding to those natural modalities, laser, acupuncture, acupressure, massage. I didn't have my camera on. Silas is doing really well with his massage. We have a massage school and he gets to be the demo cat class, so he's learning how to do that. So, but that's a great example of us saying cats as felines, as a species, they like to be in small spaces and they like to be high. So if they don't, it doesn't mean we have to make her get high, but we need to be aware that there is something underlying there that we should help with. So let me know if you want help with that. But questions on that, kind of as an idea, behavioral base? Okay,
I have a quick question.
yes.
So you have your cat carriers out, because it's probably very bad, but we just have them in the garage and
Yeah.
yeah. Should you have them out around the house then, and so they get used to?
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be amazing if that could be, start to be their safe space. It'd be amazing if that's where they just go to sleep and
Yeah.
cuddle but you also need to recognize that the moving the carrier around can be the signal. So even if you store them in the garage, we'll just bring them out and then start throwing treats in them and then put them back. Like it should be really positive when it comes out. It at least takes one of the stressors away.
Yeah.
Right, at least that's not the signal of, oh my God, the world's gonna come to an end.
Yeah, I did that before I moved, is when I bought the carriers, I basically had empty anyway, so I just carriers out open, so that the cats could investigate them.
Yeah.
And
Be curious on their own. Right, explore on their own. And then when you need them to engage with it intentionally, they already have explored it. That also is just very core to feline behavior. Yes, they are incredibly curious, but they're also very suspicious. So that element of curiosity and suspicion. And it could be the thing that is the most enticing cat toy that you ever thought was invented. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Maybe I'll watch it for a month.
Yeah.
Then I'll play with it. And then maybe it's the best toy ever. Cats have, again, that independence, that curiosity, this is really beautiful blend of, I don't want to. I'm not going to. Can we instead shape that into, let's do that together? So it just takes a little bit of a different direction there. So in order to work on Silas's body touch skills, we do some intentional rehab training. And it doesn't have to be as complicated as this is, but it's also really fun. He really enjoys it. He's also 12, so he does have a bad back. He's jumped off a lot of porches in his life. So teaching him to work with his own body is important. So this is his stand command. He has a sit. And then we work on, this is a technician from my team who is doing our nutrition consult. So doing things that create the opportunities for me to touch him are really important. And I went with minimal videos to make sure everything played well. But I can definitely show y'all videos later if you want. We have a lean in command. So if I reach for him, we are training him to lean into it, because in my mind, if someone's trying to rescue him, and Chris is on the far app and she's Silas's buddy and she's gonna come get him out and she's like, come with me. I'm like, I don't know you, I don't want you. But my idea is that if he knows a lean in command or more just this gesture, that it's much easier for someone to actually connect with him and grab him. So thinking about things like that, he has a sit, he has a down, all of those things just help him know what to do in the world. Taylor Gibbs, her fiance, have cat sat for me frequently, and last time they were around, he was a star, wasn't he? He was definitely a star. We did this one. Cooperative care and consent. In case you don't know this word, iatrogenic means that we did it. A medical professional did it. So this is iatrogenic infection, iatrogenic, something went wrong. from a medical perspective, this was a medical injury. So iatrogenic emotional trauma, the trauma that we as medical professionals cause to animals in clinic. A large majority of the patients that I work with now are working through iatrogenic emotional or physical trauma. Questions on this? The consequences of behavioral health can be very serious. I know and have counseled several families through euthanasia decisions because that cat did not want to be cared for. They said no. That care was not appropriate for that animal. They did not want to be in hospital. Sometimes we have to make those decisions before it's time because the animal does not consent to care. But the way we avoid that is working on their behavioral health all throughout their lifetime. Recovery care, okay, stressful events are exhausting for everyone. Thinking about your emotional health, your physical health after a stressful event, remember that that is essentially what your animal is mirroring. So you might think, I can do it, I don't have to get some rest. But if you notice your cat really showing some signs of stress, maybe you could take a nap together and help them regulate by your own regulation. Monitoring your cat for subtle signs of health dysregulation. This can be hard in kitties because they are very independent. And they're also often very quiet. If they do have health issues on the inside, they're more likely to just get small, withdraw, kind of be on their own. So really you're looking for changes. That's the best way to know that a cat is not doing well, rather than say, he's gonna be sedate or he's gonna be active. It's more a change from their normal, which can be hard if you haven't thought to journal that before. If you haven't been paying attention and then a disaster happens, you're not always sure what is different, right? And again, that's useful for me to know what's different or not. Over or under grooming. Have any of y'all ever seen an over grooming kitty when their little bellies are bare or their paws are bare? What was your experience with that?
The belly,
Yeah, this current kitty?
no, one before.
And previous one. Yeah, so grooming is a self-soothing behavior. Can I make myself feel better? Okay, but if I'm not feeling better and the environment's still really stressful, can I make myself feel better? Can I make myself feel better? So over grooming is definitely a sign of behavioral distress. Or under grooming. A cat should be very well kept. Silas is a very handsome kitty. Who has a tuxedo? Yes, tuxedos are very like, excuse me, I'm just, no, I don't want that to touch me. Is that how yours is? They're so funny. And definitely changes in behavior can be more clingy, they can be more aggressive, seeing changes in interaction can be an indication that there's an issue. Those are just a lot of signs that you can look for. Again, my point with this is that it is easy to do. It is easy to evaluate the health of your cat. Journaling is a really important way to do that. Photo journals, photos, video journals, urine tests, and then making sure that you're telling your healthcare team, hey, something's kind of going on. I'm kind of concerned. Can you just mark it down as record so that when I bring my animal in, I as a veterinarian can tell that it's actually been happening for 6 months. Because as memory, our pet parent memory, we kind of remember, but we're not that detailed. So when you come to me and say, maybe the last 3 weeks, or maybe the last 3 months, I can't really remember. That makes a big difference to me about how serious this might be. So journaling can be really important, and then making sure that you're voicing it. Rudy, can you bring me one of my stress assess kits? And I'll get you. And then as we talked about in the beginning, we cannot protect our animals from all stress or all negative events. And so our goal is to teach resiliency and be able to both prevent, but then also repair, I think. Yes, thank you. We did that one. Repairing injuries, physical, we actually can absolutely do that. And emotional play is one of the biggest tools that we have to repair emotional health. In my personal practice, we work on teaching curiosity. We teach the animal to just explore their world more. So play is really key to monitor your cat's health. Does your cat play now? Yes? No? Maybe? Do they play with toys? Do they play when you ask them to, or only on their time? Can you work on getting them to play whenever you want to engage? Because if you can do that after a stressful event, that's one of the fastest ways to get them out of that. Oh my gosh, I'm so worried about what just happened. Diet, supplement, GI support, immune health support, probably a lot of you have shelter kitties, so herpes virus is really common, Cruci virus, so they can have it in their systems and be fine. When they're immune compromised, that can recrudesce is the word for that. So you see snotty noses and drippy eyes, but that immune system can also take a hit from the stress a little bit, and we need to protect them. Endocannabinoid system support, cannabis is an amazing, amazing modality for kitties. It is so safe. It is an amazing pain control, and that's really hard for kitties. We don't have a lot of very safe pain control options for them. Cannabis is great for that. Great for behavior, great for stress, great for inner cat aggression. There's also an injection. Silencia is having a lot of amazing success in kitties, and that can really, really be useful. Definitely one to consider for older ones. Massage, acupuncture, and then my last bullet, importantly, caring for the entire family unit, making sure that that stress as a family is being dealt with. Your cat will be better for it. You can't just make your cat be happy, healthy, and rested when all the humans are running around crazy and stressed. That's just not going to happen. Your cat is absolutely absorbing and reflecting the emotions they feel around them. Okay, and as we begin to wrap up, I'm just mentioning this. This is what we talked about with Stay. So as Stay and the disaster team, we are looking to recruit foster homes that could house an animal, dogs and cats, also horses. If you want to take a cow, let us know. I mean, go homes, reach out. But can we create spaces that an animal that has been evacuated can decompress, can recuperate? Can we give them a space that is a little bit more quiet maybe than a shelter? Could a home house both the family and the animal? Can that family unit shelter? So if you or your neighbors or someone you know has the potential to be a foster home, please reach out. You heard what Chris had to say about new policies that are changing. This is something that the policies are going to change, but what that actually means in terms of getting it to happen, we're going to have a lot more spaces that can take animals in order to make that happen. And then this one, we had a lot of people reach out after Marshall fired to say that yes, they'd be happy to house someone, but weren't comfortable with medical care. And then we also had a lot of families reach out and say, yes, I'm absolutely happy to change the bandage. Yes, I'm absolutely happy to, kind of dress that wound occasion. So if you have any interest in that, there's this really lovely role of volunteer that's not quite boots on ground with my medical team, but also is able to sit with an animal, help keep them quiet, do a little bit of medical care. And then this one, we're also beginning to train volunteers just to sit without intruding on an animal, just to sit with a quiet presence with an animal that's stressed and help them regulate with your own heart rate, with your own breathing style. And so if you can, if you have any interest in this, and this is the class that we're teaching on May 18th, which is in one of our disaster events, 11 a.m. on the 18th, I'm teaching a lecture, and then we'll do a workshop in the afternoon. If any of you are interested, this is our attempt to help us as humans create a set of skills of this. Sitting with yourself, sitting with an animal, not needing anything from them, but really just being there in service to help their emotions regulate and their body systems balance out. So that's gonna be really fun. And then I think we're good. So I'll close it with questions, and then I wanted to show y'all the stress assessment kit in case you're interested. I have them here. For kitties, we have a little sand that is hydrophobic, which means when they pee in this, the urine falls on top. So you just pick it off in a little dropper and send it in. So the point is, it's easy. You can absolutely assess your cat without needing to take them in and get it blood. Hey, what questions from that? And online?
Giving, cat medicine,
Mm-hmm.
that was very.
That was hard.
I mean, even, the vet, well, we can give you it in a liquid form and you squirt it in her mouth.
Mhm.
I tried that. I was like, you know. It's like, on my sleeve,
Yes.
So the only way I could do it was to crush it up in her wet food.
Yeah.
And then she got spoiled. I think with the wet food, got that for 2 weeks.
So that would be the medical cooperative care. So taking oral medication, both pill and liquid. I will pull up kind of this video of his oral medication. We started with chicken broth. So I just asked him to sit on the table. He already had his sick man, and then I had my syringe, And it had chicken broth in it, and he got to lick it as much as he wanted to while I squeezed it, and then that time was just fun. And then we just worked our way into let me squirt it in your mouth, and then you get a treat afterwards. So squirt and then a treat, squirt and then a treat. And so now, did you give him cannabis? No. Now he's really good about, when Tess, one of my other friends, is over, he sits on his mat and looks, and he's like, and is really good about opening his mouth, receiving his med, and then treat. I did it. Give me, you owe me, right? So it is absolutely possible. And there's some really good training.
I was gonna say, my older cat, she was really sick at one point, and she was refused to get anything. And they was like, put a hole in her throat. Oh, but then I took her to my original went, and Prime Springs was this dispensary, and they made like a liquid that you put on her ear. And it just got absorbed that way into her system. And she was fine. It was amazing. It was
Yeah.
like, why have I struggled with you?
It would be amazing if every drug molecule was able to be absorbed
Yeah.
through his skin.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of cannabis because of the patients that I see, and the company that makes a transdermal cannabis product for kitties will rule the world. It is hard to get cats to take meds, but that one, probably for a thyroid condition, is probably methimazole, is a pill, it can be a liquid, but then now they absolutely have a little one that you can go on. Yeah, it's beautiful. Again, that low stress, that cooperative care piece, antibiotics are hard. So at some point in time, your animal will need antibiotics. And we are fortunate that we have some injectables now. The one thing that happens with kitties with urinary that we've talked about is they have so many urinary issues that they get resistant to the only antibiotics that we can do with injections. We have to move to maybe a liquid. Okay, well, there's only so many antibiotics we can do that way. Okay, now it has to be a pill, and now it has to be 2 pills, and now it has to be 3. So, I mean, you can see that that's when the cat's like, actually, I just stopped out. I don't want to. So training for oral medication is really important. We can train for vaccines, we can train for blood draws. So I think the point to finish on here is just because you as a human think that it's difficult, give your cat a chance. Lean on how independent they are and how smart they are. And if we can just twist our brains around enough to make it understandable, all of this is absolutely possible, and you have a lot of supporters. I'm definitely available, my team's available, Taylor's available, Chris is available, Stay's available. We are all animal lovers and we're here for the animals. So if you feel like it's just not possible, not gonna happen, I challenge you to reach out because I promise you that I can find a way. Hey, any other questions? Yes.
My cat does not like treats.
Mm.
So with an animal that doesn't like.
Hard treats or lickable treats or are we food, do we like our food? Sort of. I would look first for GI health. I would make sure that she feels good in her GI system. And I think probably deal with pain first. How are her teeth?
Well, she just lost 4.
Yeah.
Had her teeth cleaned last week.
Yeah, so we could have a past medical history and behavioral health history to the food. Like, I don't want to eat the treat because it hurts. So now thinking about her and her new body, she has a lot to get used to, but should also have a lot less pain. So very slowly beginning to introduce a treat as this is really special and this is really yummy, and starting with something that is liquid, like Sugar Treats is a gazillion different brands, can be a really good place to start. Pain is so often the underlying reason for a lot of the things that aren't working. Great question, yeah. Any others? Yes.
We're going on vacation on Monday. This is the first time that we'll be gone overnight or, Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
So our neighbor will be coming in to feed her. Any recommendations, you know?
How do you think it will go?
I think she'll have separation anxiety. My boyfriend said when I did the house, yeah, for like 20-30 minutes. That's it. Or the back or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, wait for me to come back.
Yeah. I think that this trip might be hard for her because we haven't worked on that leading up to it. That's the important part, to begin working on that underlying separation anxiety so that you can easily leave the house and your neighbor can come in and sit. Having your neighbor come and sit and spend time so that it is, even if the cat's hiding, just to spend some time if she's able is really lovely. Play is one of the best ways to try to engage if that's possible, especially since she's younger. Rolling treats across the floor, so just getting her up and moving can really help regulate her system so that maybe she's a little bit tired or more willing to take a nap later. On that longer term care piece, working on that separation anxiety, getting some type of anxiety support on board and having, like, I make these people come over and sit with me and Silas together. So that it's not, that person doesn't come just when I'm gone,
Yeah.
that it's more like, these are just your care team. And then I may or may not be there, but he has this expectation that Taylor is his buddy, Gibbs is his buddy, he love Gibbs. Yeah, definitely try to get some feel away or a thunder shirt, one of the pheromone products, and use a plug-in while you're gone, I think would be really useful. Just kind of have some of that extra support. Any other questions or from online?
None so far.
Okay, any other here? I'm gonna show you all this. All right, so, for kitties, sand, which is very easy. Dogs are even easier, especially the little male dogs. This kit comes with a pack that you can freeze, so this goes in the freezer, so the sample stays cold. And then once your cat pees on it, the little urine beads up on top. You pick it out with a dropper, which I'll show you. Little dropper goes in a little tube, and then this box gets dropped in FedEx. And the tests come straight to any of my disaster team, and then we are able to give you a little bit of feedback about what's going on. The important part is it is easy to care for your cat. So if you think there's something, oh, it's never gonna happen, it's so hard, let's just problem solve it together. Okay, we have a lot of stuff out on the table for you, stays out and available to talk about their mission. Anything else, Taylor, you want to say as I wrap?
No, other than thank you for coming. I hope it was
Absolutely.
informational, and like Sarah said, feel free to reach out to any of us. We love working on the training behaviors and any other recommendations that we can make.
We're here.
Always open.
Yes, for the animals.